Good morning and welcome to This Week. The president gets personal.
Trayvon Martin could have been me.
On crime, prejudice, justice, and community.
I think it's going to be important for all of us to do some soul searching.
This morning, a special conversation right here on race in America and Motown down.
The city is basically broke.
After Detroit goes bankrupt, can the Motor City move from crisis to comeback? Plus, it's never too early.
Today is the first time I've been to Iowa.
This Tea Party Texan, a freshman senator, sure looks like he's running for president already.
Let's stand up, stand for principle, stand for the Constitution.
We're on the trail in Iowa with Ted Cruz. All that in the Powerhouse Roundtable this Sunday morning.
From ABC News, This Week with George Stephanopoulos starts now.
It came by surprise on a sleepy, hot summer Friday. America's first black president slipping into the briefing room for his most personal speech yet on race. No teleprompter, few notes. As the debate over Trayvon Martin's death roiled the country, the president told aides he would speak from the heart on being a black man in America.
There are very few African-American men in this country who haven't had the experience of being followed when they were shopping in a department store. That includes me. There are very, very few African-American men who haven't had the experience of walking across the street and hearing the locks click on the doors of cars. That happens to me, at least before I was a senator.
A remarkable admission sparked by divisive questions. Did Trayvon Martin die because he was black? Was George Zimmerman acquitted because he is not?
That all contributes, I think, to a sense that if a white male teen was involved in the same kind of scenario, that from top to bottom, both the outcome and the aftermath might have been different. I just ask people to consider, if Trayvon Martin was of age and armed, could he have stood his ground on that sidewalk?
The president then reflected on what all of us can do to bridge our differences, closing with a father's pride.
When I talk to Malia and Sasha, and I listen to their friends, they're better than we are.
And a president's hope.
You know, we're becoming a more perfect union. Not a perfect union, but a more perfect union.
In our program today, we'll continue the conversation the president sparked on Friday. And we begin with this week's headline from what's been called America's most racially polarized city. Detroit declared bankruptcy Thursday, the largest American city ever to do so. And we're joined now by the mayor of Detroit, Dave Bing. And Mayor Bing, I know you resisted this bankruptcy option, but are you convinced now that it's going to bring a new start to the people of Detroit?
Well, I'm surely hoping that this will be a new start. Detroiters are a very, very resilient people. And we have when we had Chrysler and General Motors that the federal government helped in their bankruptcy, they came back and they're doing well. Detroit is a very iconic city worldwide, and our people will fight through this, and we will come back.
The auto industry came back with federal help, but Vice President Biden says we don't know yet how the federal government can help Detroit. I know you've been in contact with White House officials, with administration officials. Have you asked for federal assistance, and what do they tell you?
Well, I think it's very difficult right now to ask directly for support. I've gotten great support from this administration. I've got great support from a lot of the different departments within the administration. They've been helpful. But now that we've done our bankruptcy filing, I think we've got to take a step back and see what's next. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of planning, a lot of negotiations that will go into fixing our city.
So no federal bailout?
Not yet. I know the president has a lot on his plate. This is going to add tremendously to that. And I want to say we're not the only city that's going to struggle through what we're going through. There are over 100 major urban cities that are having the same problems that we're having. We may be one of the first, we are the largest, but we absolutely will not be the last. And so we've got to set a benchmark in terms of how to fix our cities and come back from this tragedy.
And I know you have to help yourselves first, but, you know, Stephen Ratner, who ran the federal bailout, the auto bailout for President Obama, wrote in the New York Times yesterday, he said that the president should go through every federal program and find out what can be done for the people of Detroit. He thinks it's justified. Isn't there anything the federal government can do?
Well, I do think, once again, that I've had some conversation already. I'll be more specific in the days and weeks ahead. I'm not sure exactly what to ask for. I mean, money is going to help, no doubt about that, but how much? I mean, there are a lot of things. We have to have an organized plan so we know that whatever we get is going to be invested where we can maximize the return on the investment and give the people the kind of services that they need, give them the idea that they can live in this city and be safe, they can work in this city, they can educate their kids in this city. That's what this American iconic city is all about. And I think that we will once again be foremost in what's happening in our city in terms of coming back.
As you know, a judge has now stepped in, a county judge has stepped in and said that this filing bankruptcy violates the Michigan Constitution. Do you agree with that? Or are there any other alternatives out there?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm glad I'm not at this point in time, but I'm hearing, I am hearing that, the federal Constitution will trump the state Constitution. So I do believe that, but whatever happens, we can't allow lawyers to dictate what's going to happen in our city in its comeback. We've got to throw away a lot of the bickering and fighting amongst us and do what's best to bring cities like Detroit back.
And we know that's going to be a difficult process going forward. And it comes against the backdrop. We saw the president's comments on race on Friday. Over the last 50 years, Detroit has gone from more than 80% white to more than 80% black city. And Keith Richburg, an African-American reporter for the Washington Post, points out that Detroit is one of the most racially polarized cities in America. And he adds this. He says, older Detroiters are correct that the city was surrounded by a ring of often hostile white suburbs in a largely conservative state that had little time for a poor, destitute, Democratic, and black city. The governor's appointment of an emergency financial manager is again seen as a hostile, racist takeover by the state over the city's elected black leadership. How do you respond to that?
Well, I don't want to make this a black and white issue. It's a financial issue, and it's green. We've got to get some funding that's necessary to help us fix our problem right now. I don't want to stir the pot and bring up all kinds of historically racial issues. We've got to get beyond that. The polarization between our city and our suburbs is something that's been going on for the last 60 years. We've got to change it. Once again, if Detroit fails, doesn't make it, then all of these surrounding suburbs are going to feel the brunt of it also. So it behooves us to see how we can work together to make this entire southeastern region livable for all of us.
What does a new Detroit look like after bankruptcy?
Well, I think what's happening now is our downtown is really hot. It's coming back. Our midtown is really hot, and it's on its way back. Our biggest problem is in our neighborhoods where most of our people are living. We've got to make sure that those people understand that we care about them, that we're going to reinvest in our neighborhoods and give them the things that they need. The services have been horrendous for a long time because of the lack of resources, and I mean money and in some cases leadership from a people and personnel standpoint. But I think our city is going to come back. It's not going to happen overnight, and we got to be very strategic in whatever we do, that we can't fix it all overnight. People need to understand that. We've got to better communicate that to people and let them know that the cavalry is coming. Nobody is going to deny them their rights. And it's a tough situation, but once again, Detroit is resilient. We will come through this.
And we are all rooting for you. Mayor Bing, thanks very much.
Thank you so much, George.